Tom Cotton right now. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Alice. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for your time. And looking at your op-ed you wrote in the Wall Street Journal, and your concern, and I agree it's a valid concern, with the president recently picking and choosing what portions of Obamacare he wants to implement and delaying the employer mandate. Your concern is with the immigration bill. Who's to say that they can't do the same thing with immigration and pick and choose what portions of the Senate bill they want to pass? Talk about that.
Right, Alice. I think his decision not to enforce core parts of Obamacare shows that there's a real risk that he won't enforce even the enforcement measures of any immigration bill that we might pass. I mean, just think about it. Obamacare is his namesake landmark legislation that he desperately wants to be effective. If we pass immigration legislation that legalizes first and then has enforcement later, why would he ever enforce the provisions of the law related to enforcement, whether it's a border fence, whether it's a visa tracking system, whether it's an employment verification system? He will just decide that, you know what, he's not going to enforce it. In fact, he's already done this in the immigration space. Last year, during the campaign, he just issued a blanket amnesty to a group of illegal immigrants, many of which includes hardened gang members and criminals who are already in detention who are currently exporting the system. He's shown his disrespect for the law and his unwillingness to enforce the law as written, so why should we trust him to pass or to enforce the law if we pass a new immigration bill?
Right, and the concern there is that the administration and the president are already showing a record of picking and choosing winners and losers and picking and choosing which rules and aspects of any law they want to enforce moving forward. That's the concern. But with specifically addressing the Senate bill as it is, your concern is that it's basically an amnesty bill, and it's legalization first, enforcement later, and the House bill is what we need to consider. What do you see as a successful immigration reform bill moving forward?
Well, let me just take that in turn. First, the comments about the Senate bill and what I hope the House will do. So the Senate bill is, I believe, amnesty first and enforcement later, which means enforcement probably never. This happened in 1986. We granted amnesty. We didn't get any enforcement. You can see the same scenario playing out in the future if we pass this bill as you had in 1986. As you said, the president might just refuse to enforce certain provisions of the law. The Senate bill gives hundreds and hundreds of exemptions and waivers that the president can use not to enforce the law. Interest groups can sue in court to delay for years the enforcement mechanisms in the Senate bill, and that doesn't stop the path to citizenship. Or Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats, the day we pass their bill, can just start trying to defund all those enforcement provisions. And as far as the amnesty goes, I mean, a lot of the talking points you've heard, I think, are simply wrong. You know, you have to pay a fine. Well, yes, but it's only $7 a month. That's a pretty low cost to be a legal resident of the United States to work and to live here. Learn English. Actually not. You only have to enroll in a class. You don't even have to finish the class or take an exam to prove proficiency. That's a criminal background check. Well, yes, but your criminal background check can include 2 misdemeanors, which includes very dangerous crimes like domestic violence or drunk driving. And if those misdemeanors occurred on the same day, they only count as 1 misdemeanor. So I just think the Senate bill is not just a world apart from where the House is, but a galaxy apart. Where is the House? We're focused on trying to enforce our immigration laws and secure our border. So what I would like the House to do is a discrete, piece-by-piece approach to immigration that builds confidence of the American people that we actually and finally will secure our border and enforce our immigration laws. Part of that is building a border fence, but part of it is also a new visa tracking system because 40% of all illegal immigrants overstayed a visa. Another part of it is having an employment verification system that is user-friendly, just like an app on an iPhone, for the biggest business to the smallest business. And we have to pass those laws, and we have to build confidence in the American people that the government will enforce those laws before we can take any further steps, in my opinion.
Congressman, we're hearing a lot from the Democrats and liberals in Washington that say, remind the Republican Party that you lost the Hispanic vote in the 2012 election. If you don't pass some type of immigration reform, you're going to continue to lose Hispanic support. And they use that as a wedge or a tool to try and speed this along. What are your thoughts on how immigration reform will affect conservatives in the midterms?
Well, Alice, I'm focused on trying to get immigration law and immigration policy right. I think good policy always makes for good politics. But I would say just a couple things about what the liberals in Washington have said about Republicans on Hispanic Hispanics in 2012. Liberals are the ones who are always trying to divide America by race or national origin or class or what have you. I believe that we should appeal to all Americans, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their national origin. And the way we do that is to focus on core conservative principles that go back to our founding, on limited and constitutional government, on equal opportunity for all, on providing people the tools and the opportunities they need to advance in life, to win in the race of life, to provide their children a better future. Whether you're black or Hispanic or white or Asian or any other race, that's what you hope for when you're trying to live the American dream. And you can see that played out in the past. Mitt Romney didn't perform well with Hispanics in 2012, but congressional Republicans won 40% of the Hispanic votes in 2010. George Bush won 43% in 2004. So I don't think we need to pass an immigration bill to appeal to this or that constituency. I think we need to appeal to all Americans of all races.
All right. My guest is 4th District Congressman Tom Cotton. And Congressman, we've got just a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask you about the other big issue in Washington last week, the Farm Bill. The original version you voted against, and as you wrote in an op-ed, you said, when is a farm bill not a farm bill, when it's a food stamp bill? And they you members there in the House and you and your colleagues took out the food stamp provision of the Farm Bill, and it passed last week. What are your thoughts on the version that passed and that moving forward?
Last week, we passed a genuine farm bill for the first time in 40 years. For the first time in 40 years, Arkansas farmers have a chance not to be held hostage to a bloated and abused and wasteful food stamp program. I think it was a historic day in Washington last week, and I think that's exactly the kind of change that Arkansans sent me to Washington to try to make. The food stamp program provides a valuable social safety net for those who are truly in need, but we all know that the program is abused and has a lot of waste in it. We'll revisit that later this year to try to reform the food stamp program, but in the meantime, we finally passed a genuine farm bill that cut out $750 billion of food stamp spending, and now I hope that the Senate will take that bill up, pass it promptly, and we can get Arkansas farmers the security they need for the next 5 years. And
what do you see with that moving forward? Do you see this continuing as it gets back to the Senate, the Farm Bill?
I certainly hope so. The Senate passed their own version of a food stamp bill with a few farm programs attached to it several weeks ago. It was very similar to the farm programs in the House bill that we passed last week. So if they'll simply relent on this needless long-time alliance between the food stamp program and farm programs, within a week we could probably reconcile them and have a farm bill for Arkansas farmers.
All right. Congressman Tom Cotton, thank you for your time. Before I let you go, I won't ask you the obvious question if you're going to run against Senator Pryor, but just want to ask, when do you expect to make a decision on your plans for the midterms?
Oh, gosh, Alice, it's been so busy with the Farm Bill and now with immigration, I really haven't even had a chance to think about it. But so one of these days, we will.
All right, Congressman Tom Cotton, thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you.